My name is Stephanie Brooks, and at 32, I never thought I'd still be fighting for a place in my own family. Sorry, this room's for family only, my dad Gerald smirked, pointing toward the tiny storage room near the kitchen when I asked if I could store my things there during my brief visit. That statement cut deeper than he knew. Little did my parents realize that when they'd later ask me to co-sign their $290,000 mortgage loan, I'd finally find my voice. Before I start my story, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. Growing up in the Brooks household meant learning early on that not all children were treated equally. My father Gerald ran a hardware store that was steadily growing more successful each year, while my mother Marie focused on climbing the social ladder in our suburban community. My older siblings Amanda and Michael were the golden children, the ones who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Then there was me, always an afterthought, always the odd one out. I remember my 8th birthday party clearly. It was supposed to be a special day, but it quickly turned into another reminder of my place in the family hierarchy. Mom had insisted on taking family photos before cutting the cake. I was wearing my favorite purple dress, slightly wrinkled from sitting at the table. "Stephanie, you can't be in the photos looking like that," Mom said, frowning at my dress. "Everyone else is dressed properly." I looked at my siblings, confused. Michael's shirt was untucked in the back, and Amanda had ice cream stains on her sleeve. But somehow, I was the only one deemed unpresentable. I stood off to the side, watching as my family posed and smiled without me. The photos from that day still hang in my parents' hallway, a permanent reminder that I wasn't quite family enough. By the time I turned 10, the pattern was impossible to ignore. For my birthday, I received a second-hand bicycle with chipped paint and a wobbly wheel. Just 2 months earlier, Amanda had been given a brand new computer for her birthday, and Michael had received an expensive gaming console for his. When I asked why my gift was so different, Dad patted my head dismissively. "We have to be practical, Stephanie. Your brother and sister need those things for school. You should be grateful for what you get." I learned to stop asking questions after that. I learned to lower my expectations and find joy in small things, like the library books I could escape into or the praise from teachers who actually noticed my efforts. The summer I turned 12 brought perhaps the clearest message yet. I came downstairs one morning to find suitcases by the door and my family bustling around with excitement. "What's happening?" I asked, watching as Mom checked items off a list. "We're going to Disney World," Michael announced proudly. For a week. My heart raced with excitement until I noticed there were only 4 suitcases. "Where's mine? Do I need to pack it myself?" An uncomfortable silence fell over the room before Dad cleared his throat. "Stephanie, there wasn't enough room in the car with all the luggage. Plus, we could only afford 4 tickets. You'll stay with Aunt Patricia while we're gone." Aunt Patricia lived in a small apartment that smelled like mothballs and overcooked cabbage. She rarely spoke and spent most of her time watching game shows at a volume that made my ears ring. I spent that week trying not to cry myself to sleep, looking through the Disney brochures they'd left behind on the kitchen counter. As my parents' financial situation improved, their exclusion became less about money and more about preference. Dad's hardware store had expanded to 2 locations, and Mom had joined the country club she'd been eyeing for years. Our house got renovated, with Amanda and Michael receiving beautiful new bedrooms while mine remained untouched, still sporting the faded wallpaper from my childhood. I threw myself into academics, hoping that achievement might finally make them notice me. I maintained a perfect GPA, joined every academic club available, and even won a statewide essay contest in my junior year of high school. The local newspaper ran a story about it, complete with my picture. "That's nice, dear," Mom said, barely glancing at the newspaper. That same evening, she spent 2 hours making celebration cupcakes because Michael had scored the winning point in his basketball game. It was around this time that I met Jessica Taylor, who quickly became my closest friend. She was the first person to notice and name what was happening in my family. "The way your parents treat you isn't normal, Steph," she said one afternoon after witnessing my mother brush off my announcement about making the honor roll. "You know that, right?" I shrugged. uncomfortable with her observation despite knowing it was true. They're just really busy with the store and everything. They're not too busy for your siblings, Jessica pointed out. You deserve better. Jessica's home became my sanctuary. Her parents invited me for dinner regularly, asked about my day, and actually listened to my answers. They hung my academic awards on their refrigerator alongside Jessica's. It was my first taste of what family support could feel like. By my senior year of high school, I had made a silent promise to myself. I would build my own life, one where I didn't need to beg for scraps of attention or affection. I would become so self-sufficient that their neglect couldn't hurt me anymore. I applied to colleges far from home, seeking distance and a fresh start. The night before I left for university, I overheard my parents discussing how quiet the house would be with Amanda and Michael both gone to college. They didn't mention me once, as if my departure wouldn't leave any void to fill. I packed my bags that night with renewed determination, vowing that the next time I returned home, I would be a different person, someone they couldn't ignore or dismiss so easily. College represented freedom in ways I couldn't have imagined. For the first time, I was judged on my own merits rather than constantly compared to Amanda and Michael. I'd received a partial academic scholarship, but it barely covered half my tuition. Unlike my siblings, whose education was fully funded by our parents, I worked 3 part-time jobs to make ends meet. I worked at the campus library in the mornings, waited tables at a local diner during lunch hours, and tutored other students in the evenings. Between work and classes, I survived on minimal sleep and maximum determination. Each time I called home during that first year, my parents would talk at length about how they'd visited Amanda at her university or sent Michael extra spending money for spring break. When I mentioned my financial struggles, Dad would say, "You need to learn the value of hard work, Stephanie. We can't baby you forever." Meanwhile, they babied my siblings well into their 20s. During my sophomore year, I met Jason Harrison in my economics class. Tall with kind eyes and a quick smile, he noticed me in a way my family never had. Our first date was at a small coffee shop near campus where we talked until closing time. By our third date, I had told him everything about my family dynamics. "I don't understand," he said. Genuine confusion in his voice. "How could they not see how amazing you are?" His indignation on my behalf was both validating and uncomfortable. No one had ever been angry for me before. When Jason came home with me for Thanksgiving that year, he witnessed the family dynamics firsthand. My mother forgot to set a place for me at the dinner table, adding one hurriedly when Jason pointed out the oversight. My father interrupted me repeatedly during conversations, but listened attentively to every word my siblings said. By the end of the weekend, Jason was quietly seething. "How do you stand it?" he asked as we drove back to campus. "I've had a lifetime of practice," I replied, trying to sound lighthearted despite the familiar ache in my chest. After graduation, I secured a position at a financial consulting firm in Chicago, putting 3 states between me and my family. The distance helped. I excelled at my job, earning promotions faster than my peers. By 26, I had saved enough for a down payment on a small but charming apartment in a trendy neighborhood. When I called to share the news of my apartment purchase, Mom answered the phone. "That's nice, honey," she said distractedly. "Did you hear Amanda is expecting? We're going to be grandparents. And Michael just got a company car from his new job. A BMW. I hadn't even known Michael had changed jobs. That's how little we communicated about my siblings' lives. Yet somehow, they knew every detail of Amanda and Michael's. After that call, I stopped sharing my achievements with them. What was the point? Jason understood. Having witnessed enough to know that my parents' approval was a mirage I needed to stop chasing. My first Christmas in my new apartment, I invited my family to visit. "We've already planned Christmas at home," Mom explained. "You're welcome to join us, of course." They knew I couldn't get enough time off work to make the trip. I spent that Christmas with Jason and a few friends who also couldn't travel home. We cooked a feast together, sang off key carols, and started our own traditions. It was the happiest holiday I could remember. As my career advanced, I began to address the emotional scars of my childhood through therapy. Dr. Linda Patel helped me understand that the problem had never been me. You were an unwanted mirror, she explained during one particularly insightful session. Some parents simply aren't capable of loving all their children equally. It's not a reflection of your worth. Understanding didn't make it hurt less, but it helped me stop internalizing their rejection. I established boundaries, limiting calls and visits to what I could emotionally handle. Of course, my family constantly violated these boundaries, calling at all hours or expecting me to drop everything when they decided they wanted my presence. When Jason proposed after 4 years together, my parents' response was predictably lukewarm. "Are you sure you're ready for that commitment?" Mom asked, despite having enthusiastically supported Amanda's engagement after just 6 months of dating. We planned a small ceremony, mainly with friends and Jason's supportive family. 2 weeks before the wedding, my mother called with concerns about the guest list. "Your father, and I think you should reconsider inviting your cousins from your father's side. They might feel left out." These were cousins I barely knew, who had never made any effort to connect with me. Meanwhile, my mother had excluded Jessica, my best friend of over a decade, from her suggested list because she's not really family, is she? That comment perfectly encapsulated my family's worldview. Blood relations, no matter how distant or toxic, counted as family. But the people who actually supported and loved me were just accessories, easily discarded or overlooked. Despite these frustrations, I held on to a sliver of hope that someday they might see me. Really see me. That hope, however misguided, kept me answering their calls and making occasional visits home, like the one that would change everything. Last summer, I reluctantly agreed to visit my parents' home for Amanda's 35th birthday celebration. Jason was hesitant about the trip, knowing how these family gatherings typically affected me, but I insisted on going. Despite years of therapy and building my own life, some small part of me still yearned for their approval, their acknowledgement that I belonged. The house had changed significantly since my childhood. My parents had renovated nearly every room, upgrading from the modest home of my youth to something worthy of a magazine spread. The kitchen now boasted granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. The living room featured plush new furniture and an elaborate entertainment system. Even the bathrooms had been transformed with marble and glass shower enclosures. As we toured the house, my mother proudly pointing out each improvement, I noticed that my old bedroom had been converted into a home office. Not surprising, but still painful to see how easily I'd been erased. "Where will Stephanie and I sleep?" Jason asked as we concluded the tour. "Oh, we've set up the pull-out sofa in the basement," Mom replied casually, as if this were perfectly normal. Amanda and her husband Thomas would be staying in the guest room, while Michael had his childhood bedroom preserved exactly as he'd left it, despite having his own home just 20 minutes away. I bit my tongue and forced a smile. It was just for 2 nights, I reminded myself. The morning of Amanda's birthday, I arrived downstairs with 2 suitcases. One contained our clothes. The other held my laptop and work materials, as I had an important presentation to prepare for Monday. "Is there somewhere I can set up to work for a few hours?" I asked my father, who was reading the newspaper at the kitchen table. He looked up, annoyed at the interruption. "What's wrong with the basement?" "It's a bit dark down there, and the Wi-Fi signal is weak," I explained. "I just need a small space with good light and internet connection." Dad sighed dramatically, as if I'd asked for something outlandish. His eyes scanned the room before landing on a small door near the refrigerator. It was a storage room, barely larger than a closet, but it had a small window and would serve my purpose. "What about that space?" I asked, pointing to the storage room. "I could set up a small desk there." That's when it happened. My father's face transformed into a smirk, so condescending it made my stomach clench. "Sorry, this room's for family only," he said, his tone making it clear I didn't qualify. "It's where we keep important family documents and keepsakes." The words hung in the air between us. Jason, who had been pouring coffee nearby, froze, cup midair. My mother, arranging flowers at the counter, suddenly became very interested in the blooms. "I see," I managed to say, my voice surprisingly steady despite the hurt flooding through me. I'll figure something else out. I retreated to the basement, Jason following silently behind. Once downstairs, he exploded. What the hell was that? For family only? As if you're some stranger off the street. I shook my head, unable to explain something I'd never fully understood myself. It's always been this way. Later that afternoon, as guests arrived for Amanda's birthday, I overheard my parents bragging about their children to relatives. They spoke at length about Michael's promotion at work and Amanda's volunteer activities at her children's school. When my uncle asked about me, my father replied vaguely, "Stephanie's doing fine. Working in finance or something in Chicago. Or something." As if my successful career as a senior financial consultant was a vague hobby not worth remembering. During a quiet moment when most guests were in the backyard, I slipped into the family-only storage room, curiosity getting the better of me. I expected to find important documents, perhaps valuable heirlooms based on my father's protective attitude. Instead, I found boxes of Amanda and Michael's school projects, trophies, and memorabilia meticulously preserved and labeled. There was not a single item related to me. As I stood there, taking in this physical representation of my exclusion, I noticed a trash bag in the corner. It had split slightly, revealing the edge of what looked like artwork. I pulled it out to discover dozens of drawings and school projects, all signed with my name. Years of my childhood creativity and hard work, tossed away like garbage while my siblings' similar efforts were carefully preserved. I was still standing there, a faded Mother's Day card I'd made in 3rd grade clutched in my hand, when my mother found me. "Stephanie, this room is private," she scolded, as if I were a naughty child. "What are you doing in here?" I held up the card. "I'm looking at my childhood memories. The ones you threw in the trash." Her expression shifted from anger to discomfort. "We needed to make space. We couldn't keep everything. You kept everything of Amanda's and Michael's." I pointed out. Even Michael's participation ribbon from a science fair he didn't place in. "You're being too sensitive," she said, her go-to response whenever I expressed hurt. "These are just old papers. It doesn't mean anything." But it meant everything. It was tangible proof of what I'd felt my entire life, but could never quite prove, even to myself. I wasn't imagining the different treatment. I wasn't overreacting. I simply wasn't valued the same way my siblings were. I pushed past her and returned to the party, maintaining a smile that felt like it might crack my face. Jason watched me with concern, sensing something had happened. When I subtly shook my head, he understood not to ask, not yet. As the evening wore on, I found myself increasingly unable to maintain the facade. When Amanda opened her extravagant gifts from our parents, including a diamond necklace and a weekend spa package, something broke inside me. I remembered my last birthday, which had passed without so much as a phone call from them. I excused myself to use the bathroom and took a moment to breathe. When I emerged, I overheard my father in his study, talking to my cousin Bradley. "Amanda has always been such a joy," he was saying. "Never gives us a moment's worry. Unlike some children who seem determined to complicate everything." I knew he was talking about me, though what I had done to complicate things beyond existing was unclear. When I returned to the party, Jason took one look at my face and stood up. "I think we should leave," he said quietly. "The party's not over," I protested weakly. "Stephanie, you're pale as a ghost. Whatever happened here today isn't worth putting yourself through more pain." I nodded, suddenly exhausted by the effort of pretending. We made our excuses, claiming an early flight the next day. My parents barely acknowledged our departure, too busy fawning over Amanda and her husband. The drive to our hotel was silent. I stared out the window, the card I'd stolen from the trash bag clutched in my hand like a talisman. Once in our room, the dam broke. Years of rejection, of trying and failing to be enough, poured out in gut-wrenching sobs. Jason held me through it all, his shirt soaked with my tears. "They'll never see me," I said when I could finally speak. "No matter what I do, I'll never be really family to them." Jason wiped a tear from my cheek. "Then maybe it's time to stop trying." As if on cue, my phone rang. It was Amanda, which was unusual enough to make me answer despite my state. Stephanie? Her voice sounded strange, tight with an emotion I couldn't identify. There's something you should know. Mom and Dad are in financial trouble. Serious trouble. 2 weeks after the storage room incident, I received a text from my mother. Important family dinner next Saturday at 6. Please make arrangements to attend. No mention of our early departure from Amanda's party, no acknowledgement of how I might have felt. Just a command, thinly disguised as an invitation. You don't have to go, Jason said when I showed him the message. After what happened last time, no one would blame you for setting some boundaries. He was right, but curiosity got the better of me. Amanda's cryptic warning about financial troubles had been nagging at me. Plus, some stubborn part of me still hoped for reconciliation, for some recognition that I mattered. I'll go, I decided. But I'm not staying overnight, and we're leaving at the first sign of the usual treatment. When we arrived at my parents' house that Saturday, I was surprised to find the driveway full of cars. This wasn't just a family dinner, it was a gathering. I recognized my Uncle Robert's SUV and my Aunt Denise's minivan, along with several other vehicles belonging to extended family members. What's going on? I whispered to Jason as we approached the front door. I don't know, but I don't like it, he replied, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. Inside, the atmosphere was strangely tense. Family members greeted us with smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. My cousins made awkward small talk, asking about Chicago's weather and avoiding any substantial topics. My siblings were unusually attentive, Amanda pulling out a chair for me at the dining table, Michael asking if I wanted a drink. Their behavior felt rehearsed, uncomfortable. Dinner was a subdued affair, despite the crowd. My mother had prepared all my father's favorite dishes, a sign that tonight was about him in some way. I picked at my food, increasingly certain that something significant was about to happen. After dessert was served, my father cleared his throat and tapped his water glass with a spoon. The room fell silent immediately, as if everyone but Jason and I had been expecting this moment. As many of you know, Dad began, his voice unusually solemn. Maria and I have been facing some financial challenges lately. The economy has affected the hardware business, and we've had some unexpected expenses come up. I glanced at Amanda, who was studying her plate intently. Michael fidgeted with his napkin, avoiding eye contact. We've decided to refinance our home, Dad continued. It's the sensible solution, but unfortunately, the banks are being difficult about approving the loan given our current debt-to-income ratio. I felt a coldness spreading through my chest. As a financial consultant, I knew exactly where this was heading. The good news is, he said, his eyes finally landing on me, we have a solution. Stephanie works in finance and has an excellent credit score. She can co-sign our mortgage loan, and everything will be fine. The room's attention shifted to me. I sat frozen, processing what my father had just proposed so casually, as if asking me to pass the salt rather than take on a $290,000 financial liability. How much is the loan for? I asked, my professional training kicking in despite my shock. $290,000, my father replied. It's a great rate, fixed for 30 years. And why do you need a cosigner? Your house must have substantial equity after all these years. My question caused visible discomfort around the table. My mother jumped in, her voice honey-sweet. We've had to take out some equity over the years, sweetheart, for improvements and to help your siblings with their business ventures. I looked at Amanda and Michael, who suddenly seemed fascinated by their dessert plates. What business ventures? Michael shifted uncomfortably. My food truck idea didn't quite work out. Dad helped me cover the losses. And Thomas and I needed capital for our house flipping project, Amanda added. The market turned before we could sell. Understanding dawned painfully. My parents had leveraged their home to finance my siblings' failed business schemes, and now they needed me, the perpetual outsider, to bail them out. Why me? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Why not ask Amanda or Michael to co-sign? My father coughed awkwardly. Their credit situations aren't as strong as yours right now. Of course they weren't. My siblings had been bailed out their entire lives, never learning financial responsibility. Meanwhile, I'd been left to fend for myself, forced to become meticulous about my finances and credit because I had no safety net. This is what family does, Stephanie, my mother added, reaching across the table as if to take my hand, though I pulled back before she could touch me. We help each other in times of need. The irony of her statement hit me like a physical blow. Where was this family-first attitude when I needed help with college tuition? Or when I was excluded from family vacations? Or just 2 weeks ago, when I was told a storage closet was for family only? Uncle Robert cleared his throat. Steph, honey, your parents have done so much for you over the years. This is your chance to give back. I stared at him, wondering what alternate reality he was living in. What exactly had my parents done for me? Beyond providing the legally required minimum of food and shelter until I turned 18? I need time to think about this, I said finally. Unwilling to make a scene, but equally unwilling to agree to their demand. This is a major financial decision. What's there to think about? My father asked, his earlier politeness slipping. It's a simple yes or no. Are you going to help your family or not? I felt Jason tense beside me, ready to intervene. I placed a calming hand on his knee under the table. As I said, I need time to consider all the implications. I'll let you know my decision by the end of the week. The rest of the evening was excruciating. Various family members cornered me, each making their case for why I should sign the loan documents. Aunt Denise reminded me of the time my parents had let me live in their house, rent-free for 18 years, as if basic parental obligation was an extraordinary gift. Cousin Bradley suggested I was being selfish, that family should always come first. Even Amanda, who had warned me about the financial troubles, now pressured me to agree. Mom and Dad could lose the house, Steph, she whispered when we had a moment alone. They're counting on you. As we drove home that night, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger at being manipulated, hurt at the realization that I was only family when they needed something from me, and an odd sense of power I'd never experienced with my parents before. They need me now, I said to Jason as we merged onto the highway. After all these years of making me feel worthless, they need me. Jason reached over and squeezed my hand. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I didn't have an answer yet, but for the first time in my life, I understood that I had a choice. I wasn't a powerless child anymore, desperate for crumbs of affection. I was an adult with options, with agency. And it was time I started acting like it. The morning after the family dinner, I sat across from Jason at our kitchen table, loan documents spread between us like a battlefield map. He had been uncharacteristically quiet during the drive home, giving me space to process my thoughts. If I look at this purely as a financial advisor, I said, tapping the paperwork, I would tell any client that co-signing this loan is financial suicide. Jason nodded. And as someone who loves you, I'd say it's emotional suicide too. He was right. Co-signing would legally bind me to my parents' debt while giving me none of the benefits of ownership. If they defaulted, which seemed likely given their history, my credit would be destroyed. And I'd be on the hook for payments. I need more information, I decided. Before I make any decision, I want to understand exactly what's going on with their finances. I called Thomas Williamson, a colleague who specialized in mortgage lending. Without revealing personal details, I outlined the situation and asked for his professional opinion. Run, was his immediate response. Co-signing a mortgage for someone with existing financial problems is one of the riskiest moves you can make, especially with family, where emotions complicate everything. His advice confirmed my instincts, but I still needed to understand how my parents had gotten into this situation. I called Jessica, who had remained my confidant through all my family struggles. They're using the same playbook they've always used, Jessica said after I explained the situation, making you responsible for fixing their problems while treating you like an outsider every other day of the year. Her words stung with truth. But if I say no, they could lose their house. That's not your fault, Steph. They made choices that led to this situation. You aren't responsible for bailing them out, especially given how they've treated you. Later that afternoon, I received a text from Amanda. Dad's looking into hard money lenders if you don't help. Interest rates are criminal. Please don't let this happen. More manipulation. More pressure. I turned off my phone and spent the evening researching what I could about my parents' financial situation without directly asking them. Public records showed they had taken out 3 home equity lines of credit in the past 5 years, totaling nearly $200,000. The timing aligned with Amanda's house-flipping venture and Michael's food truck business. I also discovered, through social media posts they thought I wouldn't see, that my parents had taken 2 luxury cruises in the past year and purchased a timeshare in Florida. These were not the actions of people in dire financial straits until very recently. The next day, I received an email from Michael with the subject line, "Family Business Discussion." Attached was a document outlining ownership percentages of my father's hardware stores. To my shock, both Amanda and Michael held 20% stakes in the business, gifted to them by our parents 5 years ago. I had never been offered any ownership, despite having provided free financial consulting services to my father multiple times over the years. This discovery was the turning point. Any lingering doubt about the nature of my relationship with my family evaporated. I was not a daughter to them, not really. I was a resource to be tapped when needed and ignored when not. The calls and texts continued throughout the week. Uncle Robert left a voicemail suggesting I was betraying the family by hesitating. My mother sent daily messages vacillating between guilt trips and sweet promises about how things would be different once this little hiccup was resolved. I scheduled an emergency session with my therapist, Dr. Patel, who had helped me navigate my family dynamics for years. "What do you think you owe your parents?" she asked after I'd explained the situation. "Nothing," I replied, surprising myself with the immediacy and certainty of my answer. "I've spent my whole life trying to earn their love. But that's not how love is supposed to work. They should have loved me unconditionally, like they love Amanda and Michael." Dr. Patel nodded. "And what do you think will happen if you sign these loan documents?" I considered the question carefully. "They'll get what they need from me, and nothing will change. They'll continue to treat me as less than until the next time they need something. And if you don't sign, they'll be angry. They might even cut me off completely." I paused, realizing something. But honestly, what would I be losing? They're not really in my life in any meaningful way now. For the first time, I saw with perfect clarity that I had been chasing a fantasy. The loving, supportive parents I'd always wanted didn't exist. The family that would finally see and value me was a mirage. By Friday, I had made my decision. I called my parents and told them I would come over Saturday evening to discuss the loan. My mother sounded relieved, clearly assuming I was going to agree. I spent Saturday morning preparing with Jason, who insisted on accompanying me. "You're not facing them alone," he said firmly. "Not this time." We drafted talking points, practiced responses to the emotional manipulation I knew would come, and even role-played various scenarios. By the time we left for my parents' house, I felt centered and clear about my boundaries in a way I never had before. As we pulled into the driveway, Jason squeezed my hand. "Remember, you don't owe them this. Whatever they say, whatever they claim, you're allowed to protect yourself." I nodded, feeling stronger with him beside me. "I know. For the first time, I really know." We walked to the front door hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. My parents' house was eerily quiet when we arrived that Saturday evening, a stark contrast to the crowded dinner from the previous weekend. The silence felt deliberate, oppressive even, as if the very air was holding its breath in anticipation. My mother greeted us at the door with an embrace that felt foreign and calculated. "Stephanie, darling. And Jason too, how wonderful." Her excessive warmth only confirmed what I already knew. This performance of maternal affection was not for me, but for what I could provide. Jason squeezed my hand supportively as we followed her into the dining room. The scene was meticulously arranged for maximum impact. My father sat at the head of the table, a stack of documents neatly placed before him. Amanda and Michael flanked him on either side, their expressions a practiced mix of hope and concern. A pen lay on top of the mortgage papers, positioned precisely in the center like a sacrificial offering. "Right on time," my father said, his voice jovial in a way that sent warning signals through my body. We can get this taken care of quickly, and then enjoy a nice family dinner. I remained standing, though Jason pulled out chairs for us. Before we sit down, I'd like to understand exactly what I'm being asked to sign. My father's smile faltered slightly. It's all standard mortgage refinancing paperwork. Nothing complicated. Actually, I countered, my voice steadier than I expected. Co-signing a mortgage is extremely complicated. I'd be equally responsible for a $290,000 loan on a property I don't own or live in. It's just a formality. My mother interjected quickly. The bank needs to see a stronger credit profile. You won't actually have to pay anything. Unless you default, I replied. In which case, I'd be legally obligated to pay the entire amount. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. My father cleared his throat, his earlier joviality replaced by a harder edge. We're not going to default, Stephanie. This is a temporary situation. Once business picks up again, everything will be fine. Like Michael's food truck was going to be fine? Or Amanda's house flipping venture. The words came out before I could stop them, though I didn't regret them. Amanda shifted uncomfortably in her chair. That's not fair. We had no way of knowing the market would change. Which is exactly my point, I said. No one can predict the future. And as a financial professional, I can't in good conscience put my name on a loan that carries this level of risk. My father's face darkened. So that's it? You're refusing to help your family when we need you most? The accusation hung in the air, designed to provoke my lifelong guilt and need for approval. But this time, I saw the manipulation for what it was. That's an interesting way to frame it, I said calmly. Especially coming from people who have made it clear throughout my life that I'm not really considered family unless you need something from me. What are you talking about? My mother asked, her voice rising with indignation. We're your parents. Of course you're family. Am I? I asked, looking directly at my father. Because 2 weeks ago, I was told that a storage room was for family only. I've been excluded from vacations, had my achievements ignored, and discovered my childhood mementos thrown in the trash while Amanda and Michael's were carefully preserved. My mother's face paled. You're bringing that up now? Over a silly comment about a storage room? It wasn't silly to me, I replied. It was just one example in a lifetime of being treated as less than. And now you want me to take on substantial financial risk for people who couldn't even keep my grade school art projects? My father stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. This is ridiculous. We raised you, put a roof over your head, fed you, clothed you. And this is how you repay us? By refusing to help when we're at risk of losing our home. I took a deep breath, centering myself. This was the moment I had prepared for, the culmination of years of therapy and self-discovery. I'm not obligated to put my financial future at risk because you fulfilled the basic legal requirements of parenthood, I said, my voice calm but firm. And I find it telling that you only acknowledge me as family when you need my credit score. My father's face reddened. So that's a no? You're refusing to sign? I looked at the mortgage documents on the table, then at each member of my family in turn. Amanda avoiding my eyes, Michael fidgeting nervously, my mother wringing her hands, and my father glaring with barely contained rage. Not my house, I said simply. Not my responsibility. The room fell silent, a heavy, stunned silence that seemed to stretch into eternity. Then my father exploded. After everything we've done for you, your mother and I sacrificed for years to give you a good life, and this is how you thank us? By turning your back when we need you? I remained calm despite his outburst. What exactly did you sacrifice for me that you didn't do tenfold for Amanda and Michael? Did you pay for my college like you did theirs? Did you help me buy my first home like you did for them? Did you give me a stake in the family business like you did for them? My questions were met with more silence, more averted gazes. I thought not, I continued. I've been on my own since I was 18, and I've built a good life for myself without your help. I'm not going to risk that life to enable financial decisions that I had no part in making. Michael finally spoke up, his voice tight with accusation. So you're just going to let mom and dad lose their house? Some daughter you are. That's rich coming from you, Jason interjected, speaking for the first time since we'd arrived. You and your sister had no problem letting your parents refinance their home to fund your failed business ventures. Where was your concern for their financial security then? Michael stood up, fists clenched. This isn't about you, Jason. Stay out of it. He's my husband, I said, placing a calming hand on Jason's arm. He has every right to speak up, especially when he's witnessed how I've been treated by this family for years. Amanda, tears welling in her eyes, tried a different approach. Stephanie, please. We're your family. Despite everything, doesn't that mean something to you? It means everything to me, I replied honestly. That's why it's hurt so much to be treated as an outsider my entire life. Family isn't just a card you play when you need something. It's supposed to be unconditional support and love, which I've never felt from any of you. My mother began to sob. The sound theatrical and calculated. How can you say such horrible things? We've always loved you. Love is actions, not words, I said. And your actions have consistently shown that I matter less than Amanda and Michael. I'm done pretending otherwise. I turned to leave, Jason by my side. My father's voice stopped me at the doorway. If you walk out that door without signing these papers, don't ever come back, he threatened, his voice cold. You won't be welcome in this house again. I turned back one last time, looking at the family that had never truly been mine. That's not much of a threat considering I've never really been welcome here anyway. With those words, I walked out, Jason's hand firmly in mine. Behind us, I could hear my mother's sobs growing louder, my father's angry voice calling my name, but I didn't look back. For the first time in my life, I was walking away from the fantasy that someday they would love me as I deserved to be loved. In the car, the adrenaline of the confrontation began to fade, leaving me shaky but strangely peaceful. Jason started the engine but didn't pull away immediately. Are you okay? He asked, concern etched across his features. I considered the question carefully. I think I will be. For the first time. I feel like I've stood up for myself with them. No matter what happens next, I know I did the right thing. As we drove away from my childhood home, I felt a weight lifting that I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. My parents might have excluded me from their definition of family, but in doing so, they had given me an unexpected gift. The freedom to create my own definition, to build connections based on mutual respect and genuine care rather than obligation and blood ties. That night, I slept more peacefully than I had in years, unburdened by the constant need to earn love that should have been freely given. The weeks following my confrontation with my family were surprisingly quiet. I had expected a barrage of angry calls and messages, flying monkeys dispatched to make me reconsider my decision. Instead, there was silence. A complete cutting off of communication that confirmed everything I had said about my place in the family. My Uncle Robert did call once, his voice tight with disapproval. Your parents are devastated, Stephanie. They might lose their home because of your selfishness. They might lose their home because of their financial decisions, I corrected him. I'm not responsible for fixing problems I had no part in creating. After that, the extended family followed my parents' lead in excommunicating me. It should have hurt more than it did. But the truth was, these relationships had been superficial at best. What I mourned wasn't what I had lost, but what I had never really had in the first place, a family that valued me. Jason was my rock during this time, never once suggesting that I should have compromised or given in to maintain peace. You did the right thing, he reminded me whenever doubt crept in. You protected yourself from people who have never protected you. Jessica was equally supportive, having witnessed my family dynamics since high school. I'm proud of you, she said over lunch one afternoon. It takes enormous courage to walk away from toxic patterns, especially when they're with family. I threw myself into building connections with people who genuinely cared about me. Jason and I hosted dinner parties with friends who brought warmth and laughter into our home. I deepened my friendship with Jessica and her husband David, spending holidays with them rather than sitting alone while my biological family gathered without me. Through Thomas, my colleague who had advised against co-signing the loan, I heard that my parents had indeed been forced to downsize. They sold their large home and moved into a smaller condo. A necessary adjustment given their financial reality, but hardly the catastrophe they had predicted to pressure me. 3 months after our confrontation, I received an unexpected visitor at my office. Amanda stood awkwardly in the doorway, looking smaller somehow, less certain than I remembered. "Can we talk?" she asked, twisting her wedding ring nervously. Over coffee in a nearby cafe, she revealed that my parents' financial situation had forced her to examine some uncomfortable truths about our family dynamics. "I always knew they treated you differently," she admitted, staring into her cup. "But it was easier to ignore it because I benefited from the system." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, wary of her sudden insight. She sighed deeply. "Because losing the house made me realize how much they've manipulated all of us. They used money to control me and Michael, making us dependent on them. They used exclusion to control you, making you constantly seek their approval." Her words resonated with observations Dr. Patel had made during our therapy sessions. "It's a common dynamic in dysfunctional families," I said. "Different children are assigned different roles." Amanda nodded. "I've been seeing a therapist too. She's helping me understand how unhealthy it all was. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for my part in it. I should have stood up for you more." Her apology wasn't a magic solution to years of pain, but it was a start. A small acknowledgement that I hadn't imagined the differential treatment. We agreed to meet occasionally, to see if we could build a relationship independent of our parents' influence. My career continued to flourish. 6 months after the confrontation, I was offered a promotion to Director of Financial Consulting at my firm, a position that came with a significant salary increase and more responsibility. The irony wasn't lost on me that my financial stability, the very thing my parents had tried to leverage for their benefit, had been built precisely because they had forced me to be self-sufficient from an early age. Jason and I began discussing marriage more seriously. One evening, as we walked along Lake Michigan, he stopped and turned to me. "I've been thinking," he said, taking both my hands in his. "Let's get married. Not a big production to please other people, but something that feels right for us." "Are you proposing?" I asked, smiling. "I'm suggesting we build our life on our terms, starting with how we celebrate our commitment to each other." His words perfectly captured what I needed, a partnership based on mutual respect and understanding rather than external expectations. We planned a small ceremony at a botanical garden, inviting only people who had demonstrated genuine care for us. My mother, hearing about the wedding through Amanda, sent a terse email. "I assume we're not invited to this wedding either?" It was her first communication since the confrontation, and it confirmed that nothing had changed. No acknowledgement of past behavior, no apology. Just an accusation disguised as a question. I replied simply, "You're welcome to attend if you can respect our choices and boundaries." She never responded. Our wedding day was everything I could have hoped for. Surrounded by chosen family, Jason and I exchanged vows that acknowledged both the challenges we had faced and the strength we had found together. Jessica was my maid of honor, her presence a testament to the enduring power of genuine friendship. 6 months after our wedding, Jason and I bought a house. A charming colonial with a garden and enough space for the family we hoped to create. As we toured it for the first time as owners, I paused in front of a small room near the kitchen. "What do you think this space could be?" the real estate agent had asked during our initial viewing. "A nursery," Jason had suggested, squeezing my hand. Now, standing in that room again, I felt a sense of possibility I had never experienced in my parents' home. This space would never be labeled family only, because in our home, everyone would be treated with equal respect and love. Dr. Patel helped me work through the complex emotions of creating my own family given my experiences growing up. "You're not doomed to repeat your parents' patterns," she assured me. "Awareness is the first step to breaking cycles." I dedicated myself to understanding healthy family dynamics, reading books, attending workshops, and continuing therapy. I was determined that if Jason and I had children, they would never question their place or worth in our family. The journey of healing wasn't linear. There were days when the absence of my biological family felt like an open wound, especially around holidays or milestones. But those moments became less frequent as I strengthened connections with people who showed up consistently, who celebrated my successes without jealousy, who offered support without keeping score. A year after our confrontation, I heard through Amanda that my parents had stabilized their finances, largely by selling one of the hardware stores and using the proceeds to clear their debts. Michael had found steady employment rather than pursuing another entrepreneurial venture. Life had continued for them, as it had for me, just along separate paths. Amanda and I maintained cautious contact, building a tentative relationship based on adult understanding rather than shared childhood experiences. She revealed that our parents rarely mentioned me now, as if by removing me from conversation they could erase the uncomfortable truths I had spoken. In our new home, Jason and I created traditions that reflected our values: Sunday dinners with friends, volunteer work in our community, genuine celebrations of each other's achievements. We designated that small room near the kitchen as a home office initially, but with plans to convert it to a nursery when the time was right. One evening, as we sat on our porch watching the sunset, Jason asked, "Do you ever regret standing up to your parents?" I considered the question carefully. I regret that it had to come to that. I regret that they couldn't love me as I needed to be loved. But I don't regret protecting myself and our future. He nodded, understanding the nuance in my answer. "You taught me something important that day, you know. That sometimes the bravest thing isn't staying and fighting, but recognizing when it's time to walk away." His words captured exactly what I had learned through this painful journey. True belonging isn't about forcing yourself to fit into spaces where you're not valued. It's about creating environments where authentic connection can flourish, where love isn't conditional on compliance or utility. I still carry the scars of my childhood exclusion, the subtle ways my parents communicated that I wasn't quite family enough. But those scars no longer define me or limit my capacity for joy. Instead, they've become reminders of my resilience, testaments to my ability to break cycles and create something better. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family, know that you're not alone. The pain is real, but so is the possibility of healing. You can't change how others treat you, but you can decide what treatment you're willing to accept. Sometimes finding your voice means being willing to say, "Not my house," to obligations that aren't truly yours to bear. Have you ever had to stand up to family pressure for your own well-being? Share your story in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of resilience and self-discovery. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve to be valued exactly as you are.